Hello, welcome back to a new video on the Brandon Lee page. This video, it's a slightly different video, not so much as showing memorabilia as such. There is a little something I want to show at just at the very end, but the main focus on this is to talk about Brandon Lee's grave, or Brandon Lee's headstone. And back in March of 2011 I took a trip to Seattle, Washington, and I did actually go to Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle to find Bruce and Brandon Lee's graves, which was a dream come true for me. But also I will be going back there next year to Seattle, so I shall go back again to the graves and pay my respects in the new year, as I will be doing a trip to Seattle, Alaska, so it will be really special again for me. And then just on the other side here you have two shots I took back then of what they were like then, back in March of 2011, and the two pictures of Bruce and Brandon together with a note I put on there, and I put on Bruce's headstone. If I can remember what I put, it's a little fuzzy on the photograph, but I can just about read what I put. I put, for the two legends, your work and wisdom through daily living continues to inspire me. You are both missed. Adrian Scott, United Kingdom, March 2011. So that was just a really nice achievement which I was able to do, and leave a message on Bruce's grave. And then there are more pictures here of me at the gravesite, and you have a bench opposite with Linda Lee and Shannon's inscriptions on the bench, and on the other side you've got the key to immortality, or the key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering, which is a really inspirational quote, that we should never take life for granted and just live each and every day to the fullest. That's the top of Brandon's, that's the flat piece of the headstone, which is the famous inscription, which I'll get to in a little bit. And then there's another one of me there, Brandon's grave there, and then Bruce's grave, and then the book with the yin yang on Bruce's grave. Your inspiration continues to guide us towards our personal liberation. So really amazing to see and experience all this. But what's more interesting is Brandon's grave that I want to talk about, is why is it shaped like this. It's split at the top and through the middle, so I'm going to go through this in a bit more detail. So we know Bruce Lee, he was born November 27, 1940, he died July 20th, 1973, aged 32. Brandon Lee was February the 1st, 1965, and he died March 31st, 1993, he was 28. Bruce 32. So there's a little bit behind this I was able to find in one of my older magazines I had, which is the official publication and voice of the John Van Jeet Kendo Nucleus, I think that's how it's pronounced, which is August 1997. So this is a few years old, this magazine, and inside you have an article, It All Seems Limitless, the symbolic meaning of Brandon Lee's headstone, by Linda Lee, which is Bruce's widow and the mother of Brandon and Shannon. And I shall read a little bit of this in parts, which I found which is quite interesting. And this guy here, he's the designer, and he created Brandon Lee's headstone. He was the artist that made the headstone, which I shall read in a little bit. And then just over the page there, full shot there of Bruce and Brandon Lee graves. So if I go back a little bit and Yeah, so here we go. So basically, just try and get a little history of Branley's gravestone. There was never any question but that Brandon's final resting place should be next to his father at Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle, Washington. Bruce Lee had been buried there 20 years earlier because Bruce had loved his years in Seattle and had hoped someday that the family would have a home in the Pacific Northwest. Brandon had also lived in Seattle for a short time as a baby, and for a year after his father died. Sometime after the shock of Brandon's death and burial had passed, the concern was to find a way to honour Brandon's life with a fitting grave marker. It seemed an impossible task. However, finally the answer was to let Brandon speak for himself. By understanding the significance of the shape of the sculpture and the words engraved thereon, a trip to the cemetery can become more meaningful to the many visitors from all over the world. So, the sculpture, the Lee family finally settled on the sculpture of Kirk McLean, a Northwest artist who had created works in stone and wood that are displayed in numerous public and private venues. This was the first time he was asked to design a sculpture to serve as a headstone. The sculpture took more than 2 years from conception to installation. The result is a work of art that is both fulfilling to the eye and true to Brandon's spirit. The vertical headstone is slightly twisted rectangle with a cleft in the middle, symbolising the cruel tearing apart of Brandon's beautiful life. The twist in the sculpture makes the top, from a bird's eye view, resemble a yin-yang symbol reflecting the common thread with the symbol of the book on Bruce's grave. All the edges are rounded and polished, giving the feeling of fluidity, but inside the cleft is left raw and rough to symbolise the crude destruction, power of death, as well as the independency of life and death. On the horizontal base is engraved a passage from the book Sheltering Sky by Peter Bells. This passage was especially meaningful to Brandon as he had placed it on the front of his wedding invitation. Perhaps it indicated to him the nature of human life and fragility of happiness. Life. Little did anyone know that as we were looking forward to the happy occasion of his marriage, this very quote would be placed on Brandon's gravestone. I've spoken about the passage before that he says, the words that he speaks in the interview, and it's also very famous on his gravestone, but I'm going to read them again. So here it is here. You can just see that it's placed on the lower part of the grave. Because we do not know when we will die, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well. Yet everything happens a certain number of times, and a very small number, really. How many more times would you remember a certain afternoon of your childhood, some afternoon that's so deeply a part of your being that you can't even conceive of your life without it? Perhaps 4 or 5 times more, perhaps not even that. How many more times will you watch the full moon rise? Perhaps 20, and yet it all seems limitless. So that's the famous words that was meant to be for the wedding. That sadly ended up on his grave. And the other words that I always struggled with was Brandon's famous line that he says in The Crow as Eric Draven, when he says nothing is trivial, which is a word that I struggle with of understanding the meaning behind it. And it says here, indicating the tendency for human beings to be unappreciative of the little things in life, meaning we forget about the very small things in life and we don't appreciate it when we should appreciate the small things that we don't even notice, that we often tend to take for granted. including the very blessings of life itself. So that's really meaningful and really special, and it's great on a philosophical level, and Brandon Lee was very philosophical, just like his father before him. So there it was, that's my trip back in March of 2011 to Seattle, and just stopping by to pay my respects to Bruce and Brandon Lee. Rest in place. So really, really special, and I'm really looking forward to going back again and paying my respects. So there we are. And then just to top it off with this video, as in memorabilia, is I got these two super canvas prints. Really, really special. Really, really nice. This is more of a like a wintry look, with Brandon's face coming through the trees. Really, really effective. Nice shot. And then also this one, which is another shot of Brandon, really dark, gothic-y shot of Brandon Lee amongst gothic-y candles. Really, really effective, and I just love the darkness with his white face just glowing through. Really beautiful. So there it is for another video on the Brandon Lee page, and I hope you enjoyed it and found this a little inspiring, that maybe if anyone's watching this, that they would be inspired to go to Seattle for a holiday, or to visit Bruce and Brandon Lee's grave. It's well worth a visit. But it's at Lakeview Cemetery, is at 1554 15th Avenue East, Seattle. Open from 9 AM every day and closes at dusk. So it's a nice visit if you're in the area. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.